生命雄鹰是我飞翔的翅膀，踏上不羁风致的马靴，把奶酒让我藐视死亡。跨上马与狂风对话，迎着黄沙我再次出发。无畏的血水战甲滑落，我的伤口是燃烧的太阳。哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦。一直在马背上，生命矗立在我肩膀。一生在战场，是我的荣耀。哎呦，哎呦，哎呦，伟大的长生节，我的魂与你同在。我们是这草原真正的主人。哎呦，哎呦，哎呦。为了孩子稚嫩的脸庞，为母亲眼中的期望，兄弟们站起来反抗，英雄故事必被后代传唱。我们是勇士的民族，过去的血在身上流淌，神圣的母语放声高喊，我还们能赢死他呀！哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦，哦嘿呦。一直在马背上，生命矗立在我肩膀。一生在战场，是我的荣耀。哎呦，哎呦，哎呦，伟大的长生节。
没事，我再调一下。1，这样吗？Good. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the bridge. This is from Himalaya, Canada, and I have my co-host here with me, Mr. Sun and Sherry. Yeah. Well, Sherry, can you say hi to our audience first, please?
Hello,
Sherry.
everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I hope you can stay with us. We'll have something important to deliver tonight. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No?
Go
Can
ahead,
you hear?
Mr. Sun. Go ahead.
Good evening. And we have a little bit of challenge about technology, but again, we come back and we will show some interesting history and what's happening last week or this week. Joseph, back to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, yeah, it's been a lot happened, in this past week. Well, the fact is, tonight we're going to talk just one topic. It's about Taiwan and China. And so, back in 1949, after Mao Zedong founded or whatever, just take over China from Kuomintang, Chiang Kai-shek. And he actually claimed that he's going to take back Taiwan, even though Taiwan, Chiang Kai-shek was driven to Taiwan Island. And at that moment, everybody was thinking, okay, why didn't Mao actually get back Taiwan? Well, we know for a fact that he is not capable. First, we'll take a short look at the short video, and then you will get the background. And then I will talk about how it would happen if you think about in 1976, after Mao died, things is getting back a little bit changed because of Deng Xiaoping and Jiang Zemin when they took over China's regime, and they were trying to change their attitude because they want to be hideout, like to pretend to be weak, and so that they try to hide their clout by doing, BGY and doing, international protruding. Like we talked about this before as a parasite economic system that they want to secretly take over the world. That is what happened in the past years. Like in China, there's a period, they call it open door policy period after Deng took over. But the China at the same time secretly developed their economy and getting richer and richer. But the richer, the fact is richer for those oligarchs. I mean, those, high rank officials, right? Or CCP's big families, they are getting rich. Majority of the Chinese, civilians, 老百姓 was still there, was still at a poor level of living standard. And then what happened is, I want to just point one thing before we actually started. You guys, well, my co-host here, you think about it. In 1979 or after that, when China opened the door, and they actually tried a lot of ways to attract foreign investment, and particularly investment from Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, and including Taiwan. A lot of Taiwanese was invited over to China to set up facilities. And in the same time, Chinese ladies, particularly in Shanghai, I'm not, biased to Shanghainese, but I'm talking about in Shanghai, because this is the information I get from a lot of Taiwan people I used to work with, and I now even still have connection with. And they mentioned in that time from 1979 or 1980s until 2000, that time Chinese ladies, women or girls are desperate to find a Taiwanese to marry so that they could get a better lifestyle, they could get richer faster, or whatever it means. And that time, Taiwan guys, no matter how ugly they look, when they come to China, as they can just like a cock boasting up, like they say, I'm a rich guy from Taiwan, so marry me, something like that. And after 2001 and later, things changed because China is becoming richer and richer. More and more Chinese guys become a rich guy, and also ladies and girls in Shanghai or in a lot of South cities, they are trying to marry maybe rich Chinese or even rich Westerners. So economically and socially, a lot of trend was changed during that time. And now it's come to a time that we talk about like what's happening now. Chinese women are even don't want to bother to look at the Taiwan guys because Taiwan now is small, just a small piece of a cake and no longer very rich because Chinese are super rich. But at the same time, lots of Taiwan industrials and Taiwan, business owners are opening their manufacturing facilities in China. And of course, some married to them already. But the thing is, Taiwan manufacturers have so many facilities almost everywhere in the main Chinese cities. And particularly before 2019, before the pandemic happened, I know in Wuhan, there's maybe thousands of manufacturer facilities, just the background owner is from Taiwan. And they have a lot of things produced in Taiwan till the last day when the pandemic actually swept over Taiwan. But now it's come to another time when we call it Hitler or Hitler, is actually planning and maybe already getting ready to start invite or take over. We call it invade or we call it take over, and the Chinese Communist Party would call it take it back. They say from Mao, they say we will definitely liberate Taiwan. And later on now, she said we're going to take back Taiwan. They all believe that Taiwan is part of CCP, but Taiwan, a lot of divided situations happening. Some Taiwan guys would say, oh, you know what? Mainland China used to belong to Taiwan because the government is used to be, they say 100 years ago, they say 中华民国, right? So it's called like somewhat they call it democratic country or whatever, or republic or republic, but they call it people. What is that term, Mr. Song?
I think the People's Republic. No, Republic of China. Republic
of China, right, yeah. Correct. Republic of China, not the People's Republic of China is Mao's. So it's similar, but what happened is we know Taiwan is a democratic part. I mean a democratic, country since 1970s or later, maybe 1980s, after Chiang Kai-shek died and his son passed away. It gradually started the election system. Before that, there was still like a regime, the same thing. Okay, so that's a little bit background towards what happened between China and Taiwan in the past, like now more than 70 years now. So things is coming to maybe to a final decision or final term. Before we roll up the first background video, maybe we can have Mr. Sun and Sherry, could you please just share a little bit more about this background information, or what your thought about what's next going to happen in Taiwan and China?
Before I go in there, I want to just reminder those listeners and audience here. Both Joseph and I raised up to be trained, brainwashed by Mao, right? We definitely liberate Taiwan, and they think the Taiwanese people living in terrible condition, right? That's why I want to liberate. So liberation means give them freedom, liberate. And that's what they say. Chinese in mainland stand up. We have a free will. We can do a lot of things. They think the Taiwanese people has been enslaved by the Chiang Kai-shek and the other people and those government. So that's why we keep being brainwashed for so long, and believe C is a little earlier. I mean, older than us. He definitely much brainwashed deeply than us, right? So because his family himself have been in jail, his dad have been in jail so many times. And here's the sad part is just 8 years before our age, and those guys is right guard. That's all they've been and really called educated in the rural area. And that's Mao's idea. They remember is enable the whole population, that young generation, it will be roughly 10 years, those people become a army. So those army basically control everything. Now they even control the sad part. Those people, there's no knowledge, nothing, just learned how to fight. And that's what now he take over. He want to carry out that mission. So all those years, roughly about 30 years, we call openness and development, mean nothing, because he only know those 10 years. And they don't know anything about those past 20 years. I will say they know, but again, that's not the way he used to be governed, how to treating people. And we treating that way. We false all Chinese at this age still have that heritage inside our brain, inside our way to thinking, inside our way to speak. Everything that's part of our DNA now. We have to clean that up. And the sad part is They are Chinese. Why you want fighting with the Chinese themselves? Taiwanese, they living well. They not take your land. You know, they provide a lot of semiconductor, chips, everything. They provide a service, provide a lot of stuff. Why we want to take over? What's the purpose of that? Right? So we have to ask our question ourselves. Why we fighting ourselves within the Chinese people? You know, this is the thing. You only detector can do that, and it's just because they want to do something. They want unified, and this is the sad part about the whole Chinese culture from Qin Shi Huang 2,000 years ago. They will always unify is better. Unify is better. Always is, you know, same metrics system, road same wide. You know, all those things. But why is better? How many same road you see so far? All those Qin devolved road is gone. Even the Great Wall is still there. No one uses it. What is usage for that? So everything we say, hey, good is, you know, say, hey, we create this glorious culture dynasty in the past. What is good for us? Because reality is in our life is about the diversity. It's about the difference. Everybody born difference. If you so many things, it's not about unify. It's not about grand unify. It's not about like physics talking about grand unified theory, right? There's this full of in the human life, in the animal world, in the ecological system, a plant system, it's all about diversification.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's how we do.
Yeah, I agree to you. But Sherry, besides what Mr. Sang just mentioned about the ideology of being united or unified, as Mao said, or Qin Shi Huang had said, also the Chinese, majority of the Chinese inside mainland China believe, because of the propaganda, that Taiwan is part of China, so they should get it back. And besides that reason, what other reasons you might think of, like as a Chinese? We were all Chinese before, right? Even now we are maybe Canadians or we are Americans, we become another citizen. But then even in our blood, we're still Chinese, right? But what's your viewpoint towards like why she still want to take back Taiwan and want to fight it? Sherry.
Yeah, well, before that, I want to share one thing is we know in mainland China, there are a lot of Taiwanese companies, especially what I know is in Suzhou. There is a place called Kunshan. Kunshan used to be a small town near the city of Suzhou, and then it's merged into city of Suzhou, become a suburban area. And in Kunshan, it has tons of Taiwanese companies, like including electronics, clothing, and machinery. Almost you name it. Tons of Taiwanese people are living there. So I'm just concerned that if the war occurs, all the industrial chain will break down. Well, as Joseph mentioned, since the reform and the opening up policy, China eventually, little by little become a manufacturer big country. Well, of course, those high-rank officials, what we call is kleptocrats, right? 盗国贼. They suck Chinese people's blood, and they just laundered all the money and wealth that Chinese people made into foreign countries and just take advantage for their own the families. It was just a handful of those kleptocrats, but that's a different story. That's a BGY, or that's to just benefit their own family, their what is called architectural art project. Well, that's just a whole big topic. But besides that, the industrial chain will break down. and what happened to the Chinese people, and how many hundreds of million people will just lost their job, will just be unemployed. And what happened to those Taiwanese and companies who got bankrupted? What happened to the people, Taiwanese people in China? Will they become detained? All of them will be detained in China, right? And how many of those kind of people? Like hundreds of millions of people, including Chinese people. So thinking of this, what kind of disaster that will lead to, right? So back to your question, why Schittler still want to do this? Because I think in order to solve the crisis, to show his what so-called leadership as learned from Mao Zedong, he still want to, show the world that we can control in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of the crisis. We can still get this. It's like we carry on the baton from the past generation, the previous generation, and I'm holding it now. I'm just going to pass it to the next generation, and we will just get all the control of Taiwan, because the unification of Taiwan by the armed force, it's just CCP's just a forever goal for them, because maybe Mao Zedong feel regretted. He didn't do that. He didn't succeed. And now Xi Jinping, as what's so-called the third generation, Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping, Jiang Zemin, not third, the fifth, right? And Hu Jintang, Xi Jinping. And if he can achieve this goal, how great that is to the history of a CCP. So he can still be the forever emperor. Mm-hmm. with the CCP, with the military, and I think he is always dreaming of that.
Yeah, he want to be the emperor, the king forever in China. Yeah, so he want to just show his muscle and use his power to fight the opponents politically, but then by sacrificing lots of the Chinese 老百姓, the average soldiers and poor people there, right? Yeah, thank you so much, Sherry. And well, Tony, can you please play the first video for us? First video of, the background.
Was still raging on, with the Kuomintang opposition fleeing to the island of Taiwan. And by 1951, all of mainland China and the island of Hainan was under the control of the Chinese Communist Party. Which raises the obvious question, why didn't Mao conquer Taiwan? Well, the first reason was that Mao still needed to consolidate the Communist Party's hold on mainland China. Now, the Communist Armed Forces, the People's Liberation Army, was about 3 times the size of the Kuomintang military, but numbers aren't everything. The PLA had a minuscule air force, whereas the Kuomintang had a modern one made up of mostly American fighters and bombers. Also, the PLA didn't have a navy, whereas the overwhelming majority of China's old ships had been taken to Taiwan. Mao stationed troops along the coastline and prepared for an invasion of the remaining Kuomintang positions, the closest of which were the Quemoy Islands. When the go-ahead was given, the invasion was, to put it mildly, a disaster. This setback wasn't enough to deter Mao though, and he ordered plans for the final conquest of Taiwan to be drafted. The plan was to buy as many transportation vessels as possible and simply overwhelm the island with sheer numbers. This plan was scrapped because frankly it was a stupid one, and also Mao was concerned that the USA would intervene if he invaded. Which he was right about, because the United States placed its fleet between China and Taiwan and made it clear to Mao that any invasion would also mean war with them. However, by this point Mao had another issue to deal with, since the Korean War had just begun next door. This saw direct fighting between Chinese and American forces, and importantly, saw US President Harry Truman commit to defend non-communist regimes in the area, including Chiang Kai-shek's Kuomintang government in Taiwan. In 1953, a ceasefire ended the fighting on the Korean Peninsula, and so Mao could turn his attention back to Taiwan. And boy did he, because the next year he ordered the shelling of the Quemoy Islands, to which the Taiwanese government responded tit for tat. Things began to escalate, and President Truman did three things. First of all, he sent reinforcements to Taiwan. Second, he and Congress passed legislation committing the US to defend Taiwan in the event of invasion. And third, he threatened to nuke China. This worked, and Mao, somewhat opposed to being nuked, ordered his forces to desist. And this threat convinced Mao of one thing: that China needed its own nuclear weapons if it was ever going to stand up to the United States or ever hope to assert itself over Taiwan. However, before these nuclear weapons were finished, Mao ordered the shelling of the islands again, because at this point, why not, it was something to do, I guess. This time the air forces got involved and hundreds of people died, and President Eisenhower threatened to invade the mainland if things didn't calm down, which they promptly did. Now, this was the last time that China attempted to forcibly capture territory from Chiang Kai-shek. When Mao died in 1976, his successor preferred a policy of peaceful reunification. In the end, Mao didn't conquer Taiwan for one very simple reason: he couldn't. The US Navy sat between China and Taiwan, and it was by far the most powerful in the world. And when Mao tried to use force, a nuclear retaliation by the United States was an ever-present threat. Not to mention that any attempt by Mao to take the island would have been costly in lives and money, which, given the fact he was trying to build a revolutionary government, was something that he needed more than Taiwan. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for watching, with thanks to my Patreon supporters whom you can see on screen now. And with an extra special thanks to James Bizinet.
Well, it's just a short cartoon there, but it actually gave the reasons and the the viewpoint towards his idea of why, and give several reasons though. Do you guys agree or disagree with any of them? And think about it, like how it's, historically CCP is treating this question. As Mr. Sang mentioned, like ages like me, like this, our generation, we grew up with that, right? Like we were brainwashed, like either the American imperialism is going to invade China, and then we need to prepare, and then we need always prepare to get back Taiwan. And then literally the main reason probably is because they are scared of America in the same time, but fooling the Chinese 老百姓 about it. And your thoughts, and what do you think? Anything to add or about that short video, or anything that you agree or disagree? And maybe starting from Mr. Sang.
Okay, so, there's a few points in there, and it's become history. Apparently, they didn't have successfully invaded Taiwan, right? And there's all kind of reason. But the main reason, I don't think they have the military power to go after Taiwan. Now we have power. Now she definitely have power, right? And that's part of because the Kissingerism in the Western decided working with communists, right? And the communists, and then they, let them grow up, and they hook up together. By the way, CCP, they still use Sun Tzu's the strategy to fighting the war. Use the military is almost the last one. If they really follow the Sun Tzu's, art of war, the first war is to win the will, and basically that BYG right now they're doing. That's why they start in unconventional war. They still use the first strategy, winning the country without firepower, without use gunpowder. That's what the first strategy, win by the people. And that's what they're doing to look at the Afghanistan, and look at it to American election. Look at it to all the Italian, French, all the other country.
European countries.
They are very successful so far, until later on the Western wake up, because they not just gave after your life, they go after all people's life, the next generation, because their goal is enslave not just this generation, few generations down the road. This is why the authoritarian have a much efficient strategy than those Democrat country. We have this, barrel effect, left, right, Democrat around the show, right? That's why Xi want the whole time, like a lifetime, be president of the country. It changed those Deng Xiaoping's strategy. That not work. He said Deng Xiaoping's those change power from one, about 8 years to another, different generation. It will not work for Xi. Xi say, I want to be a lifetime dictatorship. And then they can do a lot of big things. And that's one thing they want to do. This is unified Taiwan. It's basically use the power to take over Taiwan. But before that, before the use military, I think they already implement the unconventional war. And maybe just like Afghanistan, if Taiwanese people, I'm saying majority Taiwanese not raising up. If they decide to give up, like I say, no Westerner willing fighting for you if you don't want your freedom.
Yeah.
Why they care, right? And, you don't want your freedom. Why they care? They don't care, right?
You do answer the question of the title, Mr. Sun. Like we say, who is going to fight for Taiwan? You already see that title. The title we have for today's program is like that. If CCP invade Taiwan or want to conquer Taiwan, who is going to fight for Taiwan or Taiwanese? Sherry, I want to hear your point of view about the question and your any other thoughts to add about. Sherry?
Yeah, I think it's something somehow similar like 1949. I think CCP they will use their military means. We know they can play tricks. Their method is low. They can somehow attack Taiwan, but I don't think they have enough military equipment and resources to leverage to go all the way across the Taiwan Strait to take the whole control of the island. As Mr. Guo mentioned in his live show today, CCP probably use tons of drones or a short distance rocket. I don't know, 火箭弹, something like that, to attack Taiwan. But they cannot get whole control of the island. So this is somehow a similar situation, like what happened to the Kuomintang Nationalist Army and Chinese Communist Party and Nationalist Party in 1949. Also in Mr. Guo's life, he clearly mentioned that there is no country, no allies going to voluntarily fight against CCP for Taiwan, for Chinese people.
Yeah.
Because why they do that? What it costs they do that?
It doesn't make sense, right?
So, like, I was kind of surprised or not surprised, because surprised is so far I think most of us have been taken for granted that as for the leading power of the free world, of the democratic world, U.S. must do something. U.S., Japan, especially the Quad, right? Japan, Australia, and India, all the country will help us to conquer CCP. And then we together will save Taiwan. We together will make a really free world without CCP's influence. But that's too naive, right? What's their cost, right? What's their cost? Especially now, the United States is leading by the Biden administration, and for example, the tycoons in Wall Street, they are still colluding with CCP. They have never forgot making money, whether it is, the policy that pro-CCP during Kissinger's era, or it's even in the midst of the pandemic, during so many political, economic, diplomatic crises. They just never forget one thing, that is making money and benefit themselves. So what is done to is we Chinese people, especially as a citizen of new federal state of China, we need to unify together. We need to do something for Taiwan. Well, I think Mr. Guo will give us a lot of instructions and hints in the future show. We need to be independent. Mm-hmm. And to be powerful, to show the world.
Okay.
Joseph,
yes,
before you finish the thought, I want to take back a little bit about whether the Western get involved or not, right? So, the first point is definitely Taiwanese have to raising up and to fighting a good fight. Otherwise, no one really fighting for you. But at the other end, if the Western realize CCP is not just go after Taiwan. Remember, we talked about this show about Tian. Taiwan, Japan is a small thing for them. They think that our population so large enough, they need to take over the world, and like Australia, Canada, and America. And so their vision, their ambition, if you say, is much, much bigger than that. If Westerners don't realize, they are not just go after Taiwan, they go after all around. They want to ruin the whole world. Remember that's what they're thinking. As one Western world realize that, they will unified or fight back. Okay. And at the end, we will win. That's no. But the key is how many of those leaders or people in the West realize we are in danger now, few generations down the road. Until they realize that, they will not just put all together to fighting there. All right.
I like your point, right, Mr. Sun? So two things. First, Chinese or the CCP government take Taiwan is just a small stepping stone that could jump across Taiwan to Japan and use another stepping stone, maybe the other chains of islands, and then directly go to Hawaii and then to the United States, to the Western coast, right? We talked about this before. They have a huge, huge power of submarines that they could actually go underneath the Pacific Ocean to secretly merge into the main line of United States. That is one point. Like, they have the big plan. And another thing, if you could remember, Taiwanese themselves have a big history, a history of not fighting. They have a history of a surrender. Think about when Portuguese conquered Taiwan. They just gave in. Whoever could charge it and give us a better life is okay. And then about Japanese too. When Japanese invaded Taiwan and take over Taiwan, they didn't do anything. Even Chiang Kai-shek did something, but the Taiwanese themselves inside Taiwan, they just gave in, right? So maybe this time when CCP come over, who knows? Because like for so many years, CCP has been secretly BG-wide or invaded by BGY. Maybe some new audience don't know this is using internet as blue and using G as gold as money and Y as yellow. With Chinese said yellow means girl or flirting. Just like they use money, they use internet, use news or any social media or any media, and then they use women and to secretly get over there to Taiwan. Lots of Taiwan, according to Mao School today, lots of Taiwanese, I mean, they are particularly their, business owners, big business owners. They already give in. They are ready. They say, okay, CCP come, I'm gonna kneel down. They will kneel down, and that is their tradition. I'm not blaming that. Average 老百姓 had no choice. You have no arms and you have no power. So how can you fight? And you got to save your life first, right? If, okay, anyone come and maybe they will give in. Well, I'm not saying they are right or wrong, but I'm saying that's part of their attitude. And by the way, CCP has been doing that a lot. So this is roughly about the history we talk about so far between the CCP when they set up the People's Republic of China in 1949 until even today. And Tony, maybe you can roll up the third video I gave you, just a short one from the time of
to
before
unify Taiwan
something.
with
Yes,
the
go
mainland.
ahead.
While it says it wants peaceful unification, it has not ruled out the use of force to seize control of Taiwan. In many ways, the People's Liberation Army drove the US and Japan together and toward new thinking on Taiwan, said Randall Shriver, who served as the top Pentagon official for Asia until the end of 2019. Assertiveness around the Senkaku and Taiwan at the same time drives home the issue of proximity. The US has long wanted Japan, a mutual defense treaty ally, to conduct more joint military planning, but Japan was constrained by its post-war pacifist constitution. That obstacle was eased, but not eliminated when the Shinzo Abe government in 2015 reinterpreted the constitution to allow Japan to defend allies that came under attack. As the two allies started to bolster their joint planning, Japan asked the US to share its Taiwan war plan. The Pentagon demurred because it wanted to focus on boosting coordination with Tokyo in phases. One former US official said the eventual goal was for the Allies to create an integrated war plan for Taiwan. The US
Yeah. Well, thank you. That is a part, just a short clip from the, the video. It was more than a month ago, or even a little, even earlier. When we talk about allies between United States, Japan, South Korea, and even Philippines and Malaysia and all that area, including India, Thailand, and all this Indo-Pacific area, CCP is trying to buy out by giving them under the table the money or whatever, or through even United Nations. But at the same time, because the surrounding area, including the Philippines and also Malaysia and Singapore and all those areas, all these people are thinking differently. You know what? When CCP is powerful, they try to, like, for example, I want to give one example about Vietnam. And years ago, when Vietnamese, when they have their fishermen going fishing around South China Sea, or, they call it China South Sea, it doesn't matter. But the fact is different. Remember they have 9 dots on their map about South China Sea, and this is China's inner sea. But actually, all those surrounding countries claim that, according to the international treaty, you have to at least have 500 knots, 200 knots, right? So that sea miles, at least, that is belong to your inland territory. But CCP want to claim everything. And then there are some open public sea area that should belong to everybody. When CCP did that, they implant they actually built a man-made from Coral Island into a military base in South China Sea. And now United States and Japan are taking the attitude to say, okay, we're going to fight for Taiwan. Are they really going to fight for Taiwan? We already touched a little bit about that just now. But I want you guys.
Okay, we lost you a little bit. Again, my point is just like World War II, America not drag into it until almost, whole world, almost half world are lost it in Europe. That it just, that's a human nature. And until you see the blood, you see a lot of people dying. And right now you see COVID kill a lot of people, and it is unconventional. They look like they doesn't hurt. They can blame something else. So I don't see the fast reaction, but I see at the end they were just like Hitler. The world will unified and defeat it. And so this is almost same result at the end. So Sherry, are you? Do you have any comments here?
Yeah, we lost Joseph. We'll wait for him a little bit. Yeah, as we saw from that short clip, we can see from the map that Taiwan is a little bit far away from the U.S. Guam military base and Hawaii military base, right? So it's pretty far away. I'm just concerning that if the war occurs, they can't make it in time to go to save Taiwanese, right? And so does Japan, Korea, right? And we know that United States had so far had a lot of military drills together with their allies like Japan and Korea, and especially Japan, because so far what they are having as their military force is called self-defense force, right? Like 自卫队. Since the Second World War, because they were defeated and surrendered, they signed an agreement. They can only allowed to have self-defense forces by the United States. I don't think Japan will give up this chance to, enlarge their armaments, what is called armaments, right? Junbei armaments, and expand their military fundings, financial resources, right? Because they in Japan several years ago, I remembered people, they go on street to protest against the expansion of armaments, military armaments, but they eventually, I think they passed in their Congress. So it's a good opportunity for Japan. I don't think they will give up. So they seem to say that we will, support Taiwan. We will. I don't know if they announced that officially, but they showed a willingness. Right, we will support Taiwan. We will, conquer CCP together with the United States leading the free world together, or with the Quad, Australia, India together. That's just what they merely want to expand their military, their armament. I don't think, as Mr. Guo mentioned, I don't think they can make it in time physically and psychologically. What's the cause for them, for either United States or Japan? What's the cause for them to voluntarily fight against CCP, to save Taiwan, and deplorables, right? They are deplorables. Deplorables are always unlucky, always have bad luck. They're always unlucky, right? As Moscow mentioned, the president of Afghanistan. He is now in UAE, right? And his children are living in Manhattan, New York. So they can still have a gorgeous life compared to the deplorables, the 老百姓. They are suffering in the country back home. Right, Mr. Sung?
Well, you know, as far as Japan's opinion, and I again, if Taiwanese do not fight a good fight, and Japan will not fight for them either, right? But at the same time, that Japan also realized CCP go after them. So they have to stand up on no country, not just Japan, no country will be willing to be slaved if they know other party try to do the same thing, right? So Japan is imminent take down by CCP if you don't fighting with Taiwan. So so he know the danger is come really after them. So this, you know, after took over Taiwan, they really took over Japan. But I say that I think the world will be unified, but it will take a lot of casualty in my mind, and there's a lot of damage could be done before the world really starting to fight back. Now, like what happened in Myanmar and what happened to Afghanistan just last week, right? This week, you see, there's not a lot of, there's almost no fight. The country gave up, right? So of course, if your country gave up, who will fighting for you? No one fighting for you, at least for now. Right? Until you own people, enough people inside your country, how to stand up. Hey, we want the freedom, we want our country back. Then no one really fighting for you. That's the reality, right? So who will support something? Who will support a loser in a sense? Right? In this, and whether you're Chinese, whether you're Taiwanese or Japanese, you have to deserve for people fighting for you. How you show you deserve, right? Right? You're hardworking. You have the will. You have you have a lot of virtue for people to fighting for you. All you have the, resource, money, whatever it is there. People fighting for. People not fighting for nothing because of fighting sacrifice people's life. And who make a decision? And not like a CCP, they can make a sacrifice a lot of Chinese people. In the Western world, it's all fighting. Principle against it. So what are we fighting for? Until that end, you will see this is really play out. And so, like I said, in this show last year, we're talking about we are in World War III. It just takes time for the world to realize. Maybe part of the reason because we didn't have to say that is part of the reason because we didn't not enough deaths, just like World War II. Those virus doesn't kill people so quickly, right? Not 20 million last time, right? It's maybe the people need to see that to start to take action. So it is sad, right? It's especially sad for the Chinese people. We are fighting ourselves, and there's no reason beside those Hitler, the man, the crazy people. It's not just, not just crazy. We're talking about his why he want to do that. Besides, he want to be a emperor in the 2,000, 5,000 years history, surpass Mao, surpass Qin, surpass everybody else, and then what he want to do? Probably there's other reason. He want Mao. He want behave like a Mao, basically send all his enemy into the war to kill them, right? Just like a Korean War. That's how they started. The Korean War they started is probably they want to send all those Kuomintang surround the soldier, roughly 1 million, whatever is more than that, Syrian Korean War, and all died there because he worried about the military. Is the elite military, and they didn't. Those people they don't want to fight, don't want to, they gave up. Okay, those are all Chinese, but there's another reason she want to do that. This is another subtle reason, just like Deng did in Vietnam in 76, 70, whatever that time, right? So he want to control the power, a solid control the power, grab the power of the CCP. So now we both know, right? He wiped out all Hu Jintao's clan. Now only what is compete with him is Jiang and those other clan. Those clan in military, everybody, when they fight in the war, they can send those people into the front, right? So they will kill either way. And there's probably other reason. Then if you remember the war, right? It's happened a lot in Chinese history, right? So they send those military in front, either kill and the war or after the war they will kill it. So they consolidate their power grab of Xi. If he's successful, he'll become a superpower in the Chinese history, right? In the Han Dynasty, well, he invaded all the country already. All right, back to Joseph.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, well, Miles did had some of the, comments, particularly he has the wisdom because of his background for knowing inside out of how CCP, big heads actually had in their plan. And he's been planning for over some 30 years to take down the CCP, and who's the only one so far in this human history who actually stand out to say, I'm going to wipe out the CCP. So take out this regime. And now, can Mr. Tony, can you roll up the last video, number 5 of Miles' short comments about what will happen to Taiwan?
开始，很多人在谈这个问题，我可以告诉大家，一定是毁灭性的战术，一定是比如说这个现在潜水艇这个在某个地方跟台军碰了，船碰了，或者说是在空中的飞机碰瓷儿了，或者说制造了一个所谓的台湾现在有外军侵占台湾，日本美国呀任何理由，突然间绝大多数会在凌晨或者早上，或者是下午傍晚时间，不会在其他时间，它会进行突然性的进行毁灭性的定点性的打击，主要是对台湾的一些军事设施进行毁灭性的，而且一定是导弹在前，一定会是导弹在前，而且整个台湾会大乱，根本在西方世界，他也会在美国的半夜时间跟你干这事，黑夜中当你还没有选择，他就宣布我已经拿下台湾了，这台湾已经是我的了，然后一定是大兵压境控制台湾，这时候就这2步走都会是台湾内部有内应然后斩首，你一定会斩首给你下马威，把你心理防线给你毁掉，然后说你看我已经代表台湾了，然后你敢动我你只要日本敢插我就打日本你美国动我就跟你拼往死的干，甚至动用小型核武器 他一定会这么干的。所以说，台湾今天发展到这个时候，你再有任何幻想，台湾不被打、不被攻击、不被拿下的可能性不超过5%。在这个基础上，你们来做决定去啊。你说美国会不会响应你？美国会的，日本，但前提就是参战绝不可能，美国、日本绝不可能，而且台湾千万别以为理所当然，更不可能。然后台军多强大，你会看到一些精彩的画面啊，宣传的画面啊，然后甚至国民党还有这个民进党，台湾的政府会说出多少让你感动流鼻涕的眼泪，但是他比塔利班的这个政府还会烂。因为台湾的军队和台湾的政治腐败已经到了极点了，他压根儿就不相信能跟共产党对抗，他所有的希望都寄托了美日和联合军，他不可能保护台湾人民。
Wow. You know, hear that? Okay. I want to hear your comments and your thought about it. Sherry, can you go ahead first?
Yeah, I think that, you know, I'm speechless. I think to find.
Oh, we lost you.
Okay, let me come back.
Can you hear me?
No.
Now it's good. Go ahead.
Okay, Joseph, let me take on. Sherry. So here's the thing. Here is everything have a action and the result, right? And this is the part, the result we have the living with because we decide about 30 years, more than 50 years ago, decide working with the communist, especially the Chinese Communist Party. You let them grow up, have all the power, and you decide to do nothing. In this time, you will have lived the result. Period. It's so sad. It just happened to the Chinese people. It will happen to all East Asia and the other country also. That's what they were really small virus. We know for that, right? But this is they fighting, African everybody. They remember they have those 1 billion people. Majority of them, I would say half of the population, being brainwashed. Our generation, the one before us, like the Red Guard. I mean, and they control the country right now, right? And there's a lot of what gunpowder you can say the human body can sacrifice for those few people. There's no. This is part we try to avoid it, but it cannot because we living that so long. We're leaving them grown up, leaving them infiltrate every part of the Western country. You Canada and American, you see those you see those loyal to CCP all over the place, right? In media, in the newspaper, in everyday life. They are there. I think that generation, at the least, Joseph, just think our generation, how many percent awaken, know that. How many you classmates, right? I know my class know, right? 2-3 years ago, when I say something like that, they all kick me out, right? You see, that's part of the thing, right? So they are enjoyed. They enjoyed the CCP create the real estate bubble. They created, a lot of. They print a lot of money.
Illusion,
everything, and so we have to live in it. And the things we want to fight back. We don't want they take over the world, take over Canada, take over the American, take over the Western world, because then why we come here for, right? Why we come to Western world to go to searching for freedom, living a happy life? Why? Now they go after us. They go after all the country. It is for those people thinking, oh, you know, we're okay, you know. No, they go after every part of the world. That damage, that casualty come with it because we living with them so long, right? There's no other result. Western not just, hey, let's take down. No, there's no vision like no people can think about, okay, they are evil. They will be evil in 2 years, 20 years, 30 years. They never think about that. They without just like World War II, without seeing all the casualty, without so many, I mean, children came to America to begging them to get in the war, fighting with Hitler. They didn't want to get into it because they're far away. Why? Right? Well, you know, there's so
that's part of the human nature, probably. Yeah. Thank you, Sherry. You're back, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I just have some problem with my connection here. I want to be quick. I think we are come to the end of our show.
Yeah.
I think saving Taiwan or fighting for Taiwan to either United States or Japan, this does not beat them hard. I mean, in other words, I mean, they cannot feel the exact pain compared to the CCP virus, which killed millions of people or tens of thousands of people in their own country. So this is, I think it's a process of what is so-called quantitative change to qualitative change, right? This is a process like that. So it's gradually, it's little by little, but the impact of the free world, like United States or Japan, they don't act quickly as much as possible. Is like you know, the Second World War, you know, the British army, they led Germany, the German troops. Like it's like a appeasement policy, right? That they grow, and eventually they got control of the whole European countries, right? So it's just like that. So it's kind of a, you know, a time, a balance of time, and how they really start to realize this is really dangerous. They know CCP is not trustworthy. They know CCP is not reliable. They just need to feel the pain. Exactly. It's just as if they feel it's on their own body. So until then, as Skuo mentioned, we need to be independent. We need to be more robust. We need to be more powerful to be able to save our own people and fight for ourselves. Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. Yeah.
Hi, Joseph, you're back.
Yeah, thank you. Because we did run some technical issue today, but at least we get it through. You know, because Taiwan is there. You know, we all know we're all Chinese, but even though we don't mind, like for the point of view of new federal state of China, like we don't mind that whoever is becoming independent, because it doesn't matter. We can actually make it like a federal state of China. That's our purpose. Big word that people can express themselves and can have a happy life to share, and also can have a real freedom. So if CCP is inviting Taiwan, and according to Miles, it said like the odds was maybe, you know, less than, you want to say less than 5%. Is that correct? I mean, not invading Taiwan is less than 5%. So the odds is 95% of chances CCP is going to invade and conquer Taiwan. But the question here left to our audience is, will the CCP keep Taiwan for good? Will they occupy Taiwan and rule it and run over it like they are ruling another province in China? Make no democratic, make no freedom. People are just ruled like a totalitarian regime, like inside mainland China. Will that be the fact in future after they actually conquered Taiwan? Because we talk about their military power now is way override Taiwan. Because according to Miles, if Japan is waiting there, watching, South Korea is watching, if United States is watching, then maybe they do something according to Miles. They might, okay, send in some volunteer army like North Korea in 1950s. But the fact is, will CCP actually getting control of Taiwan later on? Do you have any comments on that? And then we can call it a day.
Joseph,
Last words. Thank you.
in my mind, I think they will took over Taiwan for maybe for 1 year until the world realize we have to fight back. And it is a part of they will fight, they will took over unless the West really unified. But I don't see those people in power right now and unified. It still needs some time for those people took power, the United States and part of other Europe and other United, right? And right now, those people are not all in place right now. Maybe some is there, but maybe like 50% still not in the place right now. So that's why she think this is opportunity. And they say the time maybe short in his time. He wanted like 5 years, right? But he really want lifetime and to control the country. But he tell I don't have the fact, I don't have the document, but he want tell his a CCP member, say, hey, we have a limited window, and you know we can take over Taiwan. And that's how you sell it. First off, we prepare so long, right? We done this unconventional for so long, and I see the window, and they will take over, and they will succeed. For I don't know for how long, right? I my time expectations 1 year.
Okay.
That's
what about you, Sherry? How long do you think will CCP be there for? A year, less than a year, or more than a year, or longer, for good?
Yeah, you mean when is CCP plan to invade Taiwan? Actually,
no, when they actually conquered Taiwan, how long will they stay?
Yeah, well, physically they need to get all the military resources, monetary resources all leveraged, and well, one thing they don't need to care about is the people, right? And if it's in free world, and to pass any motion from Congress, it takes so much time, such a long time. But CCP doesn't need to care about people, so they probably can act quicker. But it's still a lot of things they need to balance, especially within the CCPs, those gangster groups. they themselves is a big gangster, and they have individual within the gangster group. They have a lot, like Jiang, Xi. They need to balance that. And I think Xi Jinping, he doesn't want to, he focused on Taiwan. All of a sudden, someone else overthrow him. He doesn't want to do that, right?
You know what? Yeah. I like that point. That's the part I agree to you, Sherry. Because we already discussed, like, Xi is just one rule or one power in China. There are many families who is dragging one another. So maybe when he actually started giving order, let's go to Taiwan and get Taiwan. When he placed that order, maybe the very moment somebody else crash him. Maybe the militaries, we know there is a lot of military forces belonging to different groups and different families. Some of the military group may have the point of view that we should not invade Taiwan. Maybe they just do the opposite and they take over the CCP regime. Who knows? So I hope, like according to Miles, or according to my opinion on that, is probably they can, when they actually start the fire, they might shoot themselves. So that is another dangerous thing. So that's why here we want to also not only warning Taiwanese, but at the same time, if anybody viewing our program amongst the Chinese, particularly in the seashore area like Fujian, right? Like Zhejiang and all those areas, even Shandong, okay, just some of the areas just right, Shanghai, right? Just right across Taiwan Strait. So if CCP is doing anything there, maybe you guys are in the immediate danger. So be prepared and just be aware of that, okay? Save yourself and for the better life after the CCP is over. Well,
I want to add something. I think that is something called 以共灭共. Probably, take down CCP by the CCP from within the CCP. That's also one of our,
very
tactic.
possible.
Moscow's tactic. Who knows? It's probably right.
Yeah.
One of them. And also one thing that in Mr. Guo's live is he is calling out for a online gambling. He's raising $1 billion to $10 billion, that big money, to bet with people on whether CCP is going to, or they actually invade Taiwan or not. He is pulling all the, I think, the focus and interest onto this game to calling more financial, monetary support for Taiwan, right? He's calling
for
100.
You're talking about 100 million, right? 100 million to 1 billion. Yes, right. That's good money. And it's going to be a bet. Well, let's join the bet. Why not, right? If anybody in our audience have the resource, according to Miles, she called out today. If anybody got resource or platform to bid on that bid, if CCP going to invade Taiwan, and you can bid either will or not, yes or no, and then he's willing to pay that odds out, because this is part of the GTV platform as well. We're going to have internet gambling and, all that platform going on. Go ahead. Right. Yeah, I invite you guys, take a look. And if you have any resources, just put it on. Okay. All right.
Yeah. When that game rolling out, we will know when exactly CCP is going to invade Taiwan.
Right.
Joseph,
according to the timeline.
Go ahead.
I believe it's a 1 to 10 billion. So
1 to 10 billion.
Yeah, 1 to 10 billion. So the key is for those audience inside Taiwan, you either flee the country or you decide to fight, and move the money out of Taiwan now, right? And that's the reality. So if you don't want to collude with the CCP, they're just like Afghanistan. Probably they already done the BYG already, and there's and probably a lot, maybe more than 50% or 70% give up. Whenever they have fight, airplanes start. Oh, we give up. We welcome CCP. Come here. So for those one you don't want to collude the CCP, you better leave. Just like Hong Kong, you better leave soon. Then later, you cannot leave. They have the strategy already. Say, leave the Taiwan island. Everybody, if you don't listen, go. Either kill you or leave you go. If you can people and money. You can leave boss, right? Sell real estate, say whatever, move out. Or you decide working with them, that's different story. You can join the Communist Party. You can join the big glamorous Communist Party. You can win, you ruin the whole world. You can be that part also, gambling, right? Which way you want to do, right? So we gambling on the other way. So you can do either way.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think that's it for today. And thank you so much. Thank you, Tony, for the background support and everything. And we have a little bit issue today, but we are getting it through. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Sun and Sherry. And thank you, dear audience. We'll see you next week, same time on Thursday. And also we have another program on Monday, right? Monday and
8:30.
Thursday. Yeah, Monday is 8:30. And Thursday is 7 o'clock like today. All right, and have a nice, great rest of the week and start gambling.
Okay, thanks for watching. Bye.
See you next time.
Thank you.
推出的是不能 play 的，
是中国共产党。
没有在那个。
战马就是我的生命雄鹰，是我飞翔的翅膀。